Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to tackle something that might not sound super exciting at first.
Yeah.
But trust me, it's important. We're talking about project closure.
Oh, yeah.
Like how to really finish a project and not just, abandon it in a dusty corner of your mind.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
the stuff we found on this, it's actually pretty insightful, not just a bunch of boring checklists.
Yeah, it's surprisingly fascinating.
Okay, so here's the deal. Our main source, they break down project closure into three main tasks.
Okay.
First, you got to define what done actually means, like really means.
Because it's not always obvious, is it?
Exactly. Then, getting ready for a smooth handover, so you're not just throwing things over the fence.
Important.
And finally, making it all official, tying those loose ends,
Yeah, dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Exactly. And what I like is this source, they're all about practical stuff you can actually use.
Right, yeah, no fluffy theory here.
Yeah. So they talk about how important a systematic approach is to closure, like to minimize risk.
And you'd think, okay, yeah, that makes sense for like building a bridge or something, right?
Right.
But they argue it's just as crucial for, I don't know, a marketing campaign, things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, like getting the client to officially sign off at different points in the project prevents so many headaches later on.
Oh, yeah, those, wait, that's not what I wanted moments.
Exactly. Saves everyone a lot of grief.
So true. And speaking of avoiding surprises, they get into this whole concept of closure criteria.
Oh, interesting.
And their example is software development, right? So done isn't just the developer saying, okay, code's done.
Right, it's got to actually work.
Right. It has to pass user tests, actually do what it's supposed to, meet those initial goals.
Yeah, because meeting the client's vision is just as important as the technical stuff, right?
Totally. And it's not just about, whether the website loads or whatever.
It's about the bigger picture, right? Like, did we hit those key performance indicators, those KPIs?
The KPIs, yeah. Like if the goal was to increase website traffic by 20%.
Exactly. You don't hit that, well, you're not really done, are you?
No, not really. And this source, they're big on this idea of a formal closure checklist, which...
Oh, I love a good checklist.
Right. Do you actually use checklists? Or are you, like, superhuman and just remember everything?
Okay, I might have a few tricks up my sleeve, but honestly, checklists are lifesavers.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the thick of it, juggling multiple projects, deadlines, you know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
Our brains, amazing as they are, they can't handle everything. Checklists are like that safety net.
Right.
To catch anything that might slip through the cracks, it's all about minimizing those risks, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of making sure nothing falls through the cracks, our source material, it really digs deep into the handover phase.
Yeah, the handover, kind of make or break, isn't it?
Totally. And this source, they call this stage preparing for launch, which I kind of love.
Preparing for launch.
Yeah. It's like way more dynamic than just handover,
I see, yeah.
Like it's got that energy of, okay, we're about to send this thing out into the world.
Right, like a rocket ship or something.
Exactly. But as our source points out, to get to that launch point, you got to make sure the project is truly, and they use this phrase, operationally ready.
Operationally ready. So not just finished, but actually, like, usable.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you bake this amazing cake.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It looks beautiful, right?
But then you try to cut into it, and it's, like, totally raw inside.
Oh, no, the worst.
Right. So it's not enough for the project to just be done. It needs to actually function in the real world.
It's all about the user experience,
Yep.
right? Making sure whoever's taking over, they're not left hanging.
Exactly. And this is where things like documentation and training come in, which I'll admit, sometimes those can feel like the least exciting parts. Oh, tell me about it. The number of times I've rushed through a user manual.
Right. But this source, they make a good point. They're like, think of these things as like essential equipment for the journey.
Okay, I like that.
So you wouldn't set off on a hike without like proper boots and a map, right?
True.
Same idea here. User manuals, training videos, FAQs, they're not just nice to haves.
They're your survival gear.
Exactly. They help ensure a smooth transition and, let's be real, they prevent those panicked phone calls later on.
Oh, 100%. Help, I can't figure out how.
Exactly. How do I make this thing work? So documentation, training, super key. But there's another element here that the source really emphasizes, and that's stakeholder buy-in.
Stakeholder buy-in, music to my ears.
Yeah.
Can't stress that enough.
So important. And it's not just about, checking in with them at the very end.
Oh, no, it's got to be an ongoing conversation.
Right. Like throughout the entire process, you're keeping them informed, you're getting their feedback.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you're building a house, right? You wouldn't just show the blueprints to the homeowners once at the very beginning and then hand over the keys when it's done.
Right. That would be a disaster.
Chaos. You'd be checking in with them constantly. What do you think about the kitchen layout? Do you like this tile for the bathroom? That kind of thing.
Making sure they're involved every step of the way.
Exactly. And that's how you avoid those major disagreements or surprises at the end.
Right, because no one wants to get to the end of a project and hear, wait, this isn't what I had in mind at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for a very, very unhappy client and a very stressed out project manager.
Totally. So clear communication, stakeholder buy-in, essential for a smooth handover. But even with all the best planning in the world,
Uh-oh, I sense a but coming.
well, things don't always go perfectly, do they? And that's why this source, they dedicate a whole section to what they call the post-mortem. And I know, it sounds kind of ominous, right?
A little bit, yeah. Like we're dissecting something that went horribly wrong.
Right. But it's actually not like that at all, at least not according to this source.
No, not at all. It's more about like reflection and learning. You know, taking stock of everything that happened, good and bad.
Exactly. And this source, they actually call it a celebration and reflection session, which I kind of love.
Celebration and reflection. I like that.
Right, because it's not just about picking apart the mistakes. It's also about acknowledging the wins.
Exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in the, okay, we could have done this better. But celebrating those successes is important too.
Absolutely. And they use this great analogy in the source about a basketball team.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
So imagine the team, they just won the championship, right? They're ecstatic.
Champagne's flowing, everyone's happy.
Exactly. But even then, the coach is going to gather them together and they're going to break down the game, right?
Of course, yeah. What worked, what didn't, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Figure out, like, okay, that play was amazing, we should do that again. Or, wow, that was a disaster, let's never do that again.
Right. Turn those mistakes into learning opportunities.
Exactly. So even though you've achieved the goal, there's still so much you can learn from the experience.
Totally. And I think this applies to any project, no matter how big or small,
Oh, absolutely. Like, even if it's just you reorganizing your closet.
Exactly. You can still take a step back and be like, okay, what worked, what didn't, what can I do differently next time?
Exactly. So this postmortem, it's not about dwelling on the negatives. It's about continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement, yeah. That's the key takeaway here.
And this source, they actually give some really practical tips for conducting a successful postmortem session. Like, they recommend having a structured format.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
So it could be something like a simple questionnaire that everyone fills out, or maybe you have a facilitator who guides the discussion.
Oh, that's a good idea. Facilitator, yeah.
Right, because that way you make sure that everyone has a chance to speak up and you're not just like going off on tangents.
And it keeps things on track, too.
Yeah.
Focuses the conversation on those key learning points.
Exactly. And one of the most important questions to ask, according to this source, is what did we learn from this project that we can apply to future projects?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right, because the goal is to actually take those lessons learned and turn them into something actionable.
So it's not just oh yeah, we should do that differently next time. It's like, okay, here's how we're going to do it differently next time.
Exactly. And this source, they talk about how important it is to document these lessons, but not just like stick them in a drawer somewhere.
Right, they need to be accessible.
Exactly. They actually give an example of a company that has like a shared online document where they keep track of lessons learned from all their projects. So anyone in the company can go in and be like, oh, okay, this team encountered this problem. Here's how they solved it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Turns those lessons into like collective knowledge.
Exactly. It's like learning from each other's experiences, which I think is so valuable.
Absolutely. It's like that saying, teamwork makes the dream work. More like, teamwork's shared knowledge helps everyone work smarter, not harder.
I love that. And, that's what we've been talking about this whole episode, really.
Finding those smarter ways to work, especially when it comes to project closure.
Exactly. So whether you're building a website, planning a wedding, or just like trying to get your inbox to zero, remember those key stages we talked about?
Yeah.
Defining what done means, preparing for that smooth handover, and then that crucial post-mortem session.
It's like a recipe for success, right?
Yeah.
Follow those steps, and you're much more likely to end up with a project that you're truly proud of.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And that's it for this deep dive into the world of project closure. We hope you learned a thing or two, and maybe even feel inspired to tackle those unfinished projects lurking in the shadows.
No more dusty corners.
Exactly. And hey, while you're dusting off those old projects, why not dust off your keyboard and tell us about your project closure wins, or maybe even some epic fails online using #projectclosure.
We want to hear all about it.
And who knows, maybe your story will inspire our next deep dive. Until then, happy projecting, everyone.